Hello everyone. In this video, I will teach you how to play the Queen's Gambit with the white pieces, but not according to what grandmasters or book authors teach. Instead, I'll share my interpretation based on the suggestions of the most powerful chess engines. However, this will be a video where I'll explain only general ideas and nothing too deep or detailed. In this video, I will briefly show how to play against the 5 most commonly used variations by Black against the Queen's Gambit. So I hope you pay close attention and can learn all of this. We will start with the Queen's Gambit declined, which is reached after d4. d5. c4, the Queen's Gambit. e6, the Queen's Gambit declined. Knight c3, knight f6, and now we will play c takes d5, which is the exchange variation in the Queen's Gambit. E takes d5, the most normal capture. If knight takes d5, then e4, attacking the knight. Knight takes c3, b takes c3, and we would obtain a strong and imposing pawn center. Let's go back to the main variation. Bishop g5, bishop e7, e3, short castling, bishop d3, knight bd7, and here, the most normal moves are knight ge2 or knight f3, but here I suggest playing h3, whose idea is quite interesting. The idea is to preserve the dark squared bishop, bringing it to f4, and then to h2 if that bishop is threatened. c6, queen c2, rook e8, knight f3, knight f8. In many cases, Black moves this knight to the e6 square, from where that piece attacks our bishop. We will continue with short castling. g6. Black blocks the diagonal to the white queen and bishop. Knight e5, with the idea of advancing the pawn to the f4 square. Knight d7. Black attacks our bishop on g5. Bishop takes e7. Queen takes e7. f4. f6. Attacking our knight. Knight to g4. And if Black now plays f5, we would respond with knight e5. And if Black plays the questionable move h5, attacking the knight, then we will respond with bishop takes g6, an excellent move, attacking the rook on e8 and the pawn on h5. Black would have no better move than playing h takes g4. Bishop takes e8. Queen takes e3 check. Queen f2. Queen takes e8. f5. We could continue with queen g3, and we would be slightly better, thanks to the fact that Black's king is more exposed than ours. I hope you took notes on everything we just covered, so that you don't forget everything you've learned. Now let's see how to play against the Slav Defense and Semi-Slav Defense. d4, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit, pawn to c6, the Slav Defense, which differs from the Queen's Gambit declined in that, in this variation, the bishop on c8 is not blocked behind its own pawn structure. Knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, e6, the Semi-Slav Defense. This is the statistically most used move. Now, Black can also respond with d takes c4, continuing with the Slav Defense. Black's idea is to continue with b5, permanently defending the extra pawn on c4. That is why we must play a4 to prevent our opponent from playing b5. Bishop f5. Knight e5, going for the c4 pawn. Knight bd7. Knight takes c4. This recovers the pawn. Queen c7. Black prepares the advance of the pawn to e5. g3, e5. D takes e5. Knight takes e5. Bishop f4, pinning the knight. Knight fd7. Bishop g2. g5. An interesting move, aiming to divert our bishop from f4. Knight e3, attacking the bishop. G takes f4. Knight takes f5. Long castling. Short castling. F takes g3. H takes g3. h5. Rook c1, eyeing the opponent's queen and king via x-ray. King b8. Knight d5. Queen a5. b4. A good move, sacrificing a pawn on b4. Bishop takes pawn. Knight takes bishop. Queen takes knight. Rook b1, attacking the queen and eyeing the king via x-ray. Queen c5. Queen c1, offering the exchange of queens. Queen takes c1. Rook f takes c1, and without a doubt, we will recover the pawn, since black's position is somewhat weak. We could play f4 to drive the knight from e5, and then strike with bishop or rook on c6, thanks to the fact that the b7 pawn is pinned. We would be slightly better in this position. Well, let's return to the Semi-Slav defense. Bishop to g5. This is my recommendation. This leads to a very sharp and complicated game for both white and black. h6. Attacking the bishop. Now black can also play d takes c4 here, which is the more complicated variation, known as the Botvinnik variation. We continue with e4, gaining the center and attacking the c4 pawn. b5. Black defends their extra pawn. e5. Attacking the knight, which cannot move due to being pinned. h6. Attacking the bishop. Bishop h4. g5. Again, attacking the bishop. Knight takes g5. White sacrifices a piece as dearly as possible and keeps the attack on the knight on f6. h takes g5. Bishop takes g5. The knight remains pinned, and therefore white will recover the piece. Knight bd7. g3. Bishop b7. Bishop g2. Queen b6. E takes f6. White recovers the piece and has an extra pawn. Long castling, short castling, c5, d5, b4, attacking the knight. Knight a4, attacking the queen. Queen b5, pawn to a3. E takes d5. Pawn takes b4. C takes b4. Black recovers the pawn. Bishop f4. This bishop crosses the board and aims at black's castling. Bishop h6. Black wants to exchange bishops because they consider the white bishop on f4 to be too powerful. Bishop d6. Bishop f8. Bishop f4. Bishop h6. Bishop takes h6. Of course, we won't repeat moves because we want to win, not draw. Rook takes h6. Queen d4, and while the position is equal, I believe white has better chances to play for a win. Black has a weak pawn on d5, which can be attacked with our pieces. For example, by bringing the rook from f to d1. Anyway, let's go back to our main variation. Bishop takes f6. Queen takes f6. e3. We don't have the bishop pair, but we have a healthy and harmonious position. White's solid pawn center helps combat black's bishop pair. Knight d7. Bishop e2. g6. Short castling. Bishop g7. C takes d5. E takes d5. b4. With the idea of playing pawn to b5 to break black's pawn chain. a6. Preventing the b5 advance that white is aiming for queen b3. We could continue with a4 and pawn to b5, and we would have counterplay on the queen side. We would have a slight advantage, and that's always positive. Now, let's see how to play against the Queen's Gambit accepted. d4, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit, d takes c4, the Queen's Gambit accepted. Black's idea is to give up the center in exchange for rapidly developing their pieces. My suggestion here is to play knight f3, developing the king side and preventing a move like e5 from the opponent. Knight f6. Black prevents us from playing the pawn advance to e4. e3. Attacking directly the c4 pawn. e6. If bishop to g4, then we continue with bishop takes e4. e6. Knight c3. Then we will play short castling, queen to b3 to attack the b7 pawn, etc. Another possibility is that black plays b5, strongly defending their extra pawn. We will respond with a4. c6. Pawn takes b5. Pawn takes b5. Knight c3. Queen b6. b3, and now the normal move would be for black to play pawn to e6, but in case of c takes b3, a mistake, we will respond with bishop takes b5 check, followed by queen takes b3, and we will have recovered the pawn. Let's return to the main variation. Bishop takes c4, c5, black counters in the center, short castling, a6, Black may be preparing the pawn advance to b5, so prophylactically, we will play bishop e2, knight bd, 7, b3, with the idea of bishop b2, b6, knight e5. My idea is to bring the bishop to f3 to attack Black's rook. Bishop b7, bishop f3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, bishop d6. Black threatens to win the pawn on e5. Knight takes d7, knight takes d7. Obviously, we must protect the a8 rook. Bishop a3, short castling, knight d2. Later, we will continue with rook c1 and rook fd1, and we would have a slight advantage. I hope you don't forget everything we've seen so far. Now let's see how to play the Queen's Gambit against the Albin Counter-Gambit. d4, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit, e5, the Albin Counter-Gambit. Black's idea is to counterattack our gambit with a gambit of their own. We continue with d takes e5. d4. Black, in exchange for the pawn, gains space in the center and prevents our queenside knight from developing to its natural square of c3. Here, the normal move for grandmasters is to play knight f3, but I prefer to play the interesting move pawn to a3, whose idea is to prevent a bishop to b4 from black. Additionally, white will play the pawn advance to b4, aiming to expand on the queen side. Knight c6, attacking the e5 pawn. Knight f3, defending the pawn. Knight g e7. Black's idea is to continue with knight g6 to attack the e5 pawn. b4, knight g6, bishop b2. We give up the pawn on e5, but we attack the pawn on d4. a5, attacking the pawn on b4. b5, attacking the knight. Knight takes e5, queen takes d4. Queen takes d4. Bishop takes d4. Attacking the knight. Knight takes c4. Black recovers the pawn. e3, attacking the knight. Knight d6. h4. The idea is to continue with h5, attacking the black knight on g6. h5, knight bd2, bishop d7. Black attacks the b5 pawn. a4, defending that pawn. Knight f5, attacking our bishop. Bishop c3, b6, g3. We will continue with bishop g2, short castling, etc. White would have a slight advantage. Now let's see how to play the Queen's Gambit against the Chigorin Defense. d4, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit. Knight c6, the Chigorin Defense. Black opts to develop a piece instead of pawn. The idea is to pressure the white d-pawn. Knight c3, d takes c4. Black attacks the d4 pawn. d5, attacking the knight. Knight e5. f4, again attacking the knight. Knight d7. e4. White gains a strong pawn center and simultaneously attacks the c4 pawn. Knight b6. Black defends their extra pawn. a4, with the idea of playing a5. a5, stopping white's pawn from advancing. Bishop e3, with the idea of capturing the knight and continuing with bishop takes c4. e6, attacking the d5 pawn. Bishop takes b6. Pawn takes b6. Bishop takes c4, and white recovers the pawn. We could continue with knight to f3, and white would have space advantage and a healthy pawn structure. White would be better. Well, those have been my recommendations on how to play the Queen's Gambit with the white pieces. I hope you learned everything I explained in this video. If that's the case, then without a doubt, you'll win many of your games against players of your same level. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.